So yeah, anyways, let's go ahead and kick it off. For anybody who is new or this is your first time attending the Pinellas Tech Network, we started in 2018 as an in-person knowledge sharing event in Pinellas County, Florida. Which, if in case you are not from this area, Pinellas County is located in Tampa Bay. Its largest city is St. Pete. Recently, I just saw an article that says that Tampa Bay is actually becoming a fast-growing tech hub, and it just beat out Miami, New York, and a whole bunch of other places as a place to be and to go, which is amazing. When I first moved to Tampa, it was much smaller, and so it's been amazing to see it grow. And I've been here for about 25 years. We are now a virtual event. We have attendees from all over, and I think today there was some from even overseas. And in previous ones we had a couple people from New Zealand, so it's been really cool. But today I would like to introduce myself. My name is Evan Brenner. I'm the digital content coordinator at Geographic Solutions. My company is super cool, and they also let me do this night where I get to interview highly intelligent folks who are doing really great things in Tampa Bay and beyond, and for the region and state of Florida. So tonight, I'd like to introduce Sean Ramphal. Sean is one of the co-founders of Maya AI. So Sean, I will give you
Yeah.
the floor.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us on this fine Thursday. This is a controversial topic, using AI, what it means to us today, what it means to us in the future. So, hopefully we can discuss some really good points and kind of, clear up some of the confusion on what artificial intelligence really is. And basically, where we're headed together all as a community for the most part.
Great, thank you, Sean. And I just went ahead and made you a presenter. So let's go ahead and let's see if we can get you set up here.
Yeah. Okay. So just real quick, can everyone see my screen? Right?
Yes.
Okay.
And if you all can see the screen, just go ahead and either throw a question up or a chat.
Cool. All right, so like right before I kick this off, let me just take a real quick moment to introduce myself too. And my name is Sean Ramphal. I'm one of the co-founders of Maya. And Maya is an artificial intelligent robot that helps entrepreneurs, for the most part, take their ideas from their brain and bring it into the real world. So on a daily basis, I have the opportunity on discovering problems and looking at ways of resolving them using some really, really advanced technology. And me and my group of engineers and scientists, on a daily basis, we sink our teeth into these problems, looking at, ways that we could really resolve them, not just from a case-by-case scenario, but looking at it from a global perspective. And that's really the core of what predicates everything that we do, and it kind of wraps our whole mission that we have within our organization. And I'll share some of the other stuff with you guys a little bit later on, as we go through the conversations, but just kind of a real quick, who I am type situation. All right, so I look into the future, the who, what, where, when, and why about AI. And basically, I'm going to discuss AI in the context of using it in business for the most part, what it means to us on a day-to-day, and how it can also help us alleviate some of the problems and stresses and hurdles that we come across, in business, in expressing ourselves, in communicating with our customers, and most importantly for me, communicating with our employees. So let's see, artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is a tool discovered by human beings to lift and enhance the experience of our lives and ecology. This type of technology is one of our most powerful inventions, surfacing many new possibilities for entrepreneurs to convert what is known as science fiction into fiction, just like everything we see in front of us today, right? So what that really means to me is, there are so many fantastic ideas that people have in their head, and they just don't really have a way of bringing it out into the real world. And that's usually because they don't have the right support system, or they just don't, there's some just little bits and pieces of knowledge that they don't really have just yet, or they didn't come across. And artificial intelligence definitely helps with that. It gets involved in understanding who people are. It gets involved in understanding what they'd like to achieve, and really look at ways and use algorithms to come up with the best outputs to kind of lead them, down the right path and make progress and what they're trying to achieve. Follow? So Evan, you want to ask some questions around what AI is before we move into the next slide?
Yeah, and so I mean, Sean, I think a funny thing came up when I was talking about this, with my teammates, and as an idea to do, and it came up like, how do you know AI when you see it? Like what are some of the ways that you can tell that it's AI, like versus maybe machine learning, an algorithm, a very sophisticated algorithm, something like that.
Okay, yeah. So typically AI is what we would use in front of us, like Siri, like Cortana, like Alexa. Those are systems that are identifying patterns in real time and looking for outputs that will move along the relationship or move along the situation. Machine learning is a little bit actually very different because that's a situation where we're training systems to come up with predictions and insights using massive amounts of data, looking at what's considered as neural networks and building those things out so that way it can possibly at some point in time take the work away from human beings and do it a little bit better. So to identify what AI is in 2021, it's all around us actually. It's in our phone, it's in our computer, it's in the street lights, it's everywhere that there's patterns that, kind of help us run our day. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
All right.
So, and then like, I mean, like what kind of well, I know this is kind of like getting into the conversation a little too soon, but like, what are some fields that like you see AI expanding into already or emerging in that maybe it's not in yet?
Well, we know it's very dominant in medicine. We know it's very dominant in fintech, financial tech. But then in areas like physics, for example, and hardcore science, artificial intelligence is being worked on, very heavily in those environments to help scientists scale their work. So one of the things, and I'll discuss this a little bit more as we go through some of the slides, but we pay attention to a lot of cognitive neuroscience and what's coming out of it to help model our machines, to help model our AI. And that in itself, to help those cognitive neurosciences progress faster, we need AI to help them progress faster because computationally, the mathematics that they're using, the formulas that they're using to try to discover how our neurons actually work in our brain and what's happening inside, the cranium and even our biology, or even some of the external things to being a human being, our ecology, water. Artificial intelligence helps the computation, being able to do large amounts of things really, really fast, whereas we would have to sit there, in front of a table with paper and pen and solve these mathematic problems one at a time. This is really where AI is very beneficial and very impactful. You take that and you couple it with things like quantum computing, and we really have an environment to solve some pretty big problems. Not only that, too, help bring about some new discoveries, things that we've yet to come in front of, things that probably we've lost over civilizations ago, but can resurface using some of this fantastic technology.
When you get started with, developing artificial intelligence or a feature for, for new software or as an engineer, what do you study or like what are the things that you first start to study?
Well, you have to ask yourself why you want to use AI, number one, right? So let's kind of take one step backward, like a prerequisite. In a lot of cases, as an entrepreneur, you typically go through the motions of building your business and you get caught up in things like profiteering and, maintaining metrics and performance, et cetera. And holding on to the vision is very difficult. But you have to kind of take a step back and remind yourself, why are you in business? What are you doing for your customer? How are they actually benefiting from what you're providing? And then once you can kind of re-answer those questions, then you can look definitively at what you can automate. See, AI today is more about being autonomous, right? It's an autonomy system. So, how you can handle a little bit more volume or how you can improve quality for the most part, not just quantity, right? Or even kind of help, delegate some things that are a little bit, heavy on payroll. So that's where AI comes into place. And then once you define those things, then you can integrate AI, look at the solutions, because there's so many different artificial intelligence solutions out there that can help. But artificial intelligence isn't this thing that you're just going to plug into an organization and all of a sudden it's going to figure things out and you're going to start making massive amounts of money, right? People have like the wrong notion of what that really is. It has to be integrated strategically in very small fragments and nurtured. And you have to couple that with, humans overlooking the performance of what it's doing and, also kind of evolving that and optimizing how that's working inside as well. That's where AI really sits today in 2021. And if we do a really good job with that, the trajectory of that and the accuracy of that will only go upwards by 2025, 2030. Make sense?
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. So let's hop in here to the next slide and let's see what we got. Okay. All right. Oh, dangers and possibilities of AI. Yeah. So this is really cool. I really like this a lot. Just as a knife can be used for saving a life on the surgery table, it can be implemented to bring harm upon others. It's really within the vision of the entrepreneurs today to uphold a high standard of ethics when creating their inventions for our future. Can AI be used to cause catastrophic events? The answer is absolutely yes, it can. And in a lot of cases, some will say that it already has, right? But on the other side of that, though, if we shift our focuses and we really look at what AI actually is, it's agnostic. We can use it to build really long-lasting companies that'll be here for a long time and really help eliminate some of the global level problems that we have. Some of the easy ones to pull out of a hat is starvation, hydration, hunger, things of that nature. Like artificial intelligence can help look for patterns in those areas and help figure out how we can actually come up with inventions or look for different strategic ways of even logistics on kind of moving product a little bit more to help remove or lower some of those bars that are being filled up. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's funny that that you should bring this up because I, was thinking to myself, sometimes AI can be, scary and to some folks, and I think sometimes there is some negativity about AI, and to combat that AI, like what are some of the some more positive thoughts about AI and like where AI is going to kind of,
Yeah, yeah, for
um,
sure. So I mean, that's really like coming out of media, right? That's an influence of books and movies, like Terminator and the Jetsons and things like that, right? A lot of people have that typical fallacy that that's what AI actually will become when we're so far away from that. And I'll go into that a little bit more. But when we look on the other side of what AI actually is doing, the fact, the mathematics, things that we can show in statistics, right? In medicine, the robots that are performing surgery and reducing the error rate of surgery, that's artificial intelligence moving those robot arms, looking at the preciseness of, where needles are going and how things are being inserted and how much of what needs to be pushed aside, right? That's artificial intelligence. When we look at the blockchain artificial intelligence, cryptocurrency, cryptography, just look at that and look what it's doing for the whole world right now. That in itself is AI. AI is helping, the security aspect of it. It's helping the trade. It's allowing companies to build applications and allow, people to exchange money. All these beautiful things, they're being powered by AI. And not just in a sense of, popularizing it, but also stabilizing it, strengthening it, looking at ways that blockchain can reduce, things that are happening with normal currency, theft and things of that nature. Those anomalies, typically humans would have to find those things through just hiring them and giving them a job to do. But when artificial intelligence, as it is today, is integrated and working properly, it will not only pick those things up, it actually prevents them 10 steps ahead of it by actually putting the user back in place, determining these behavioral anomalies. So these are some of the beautiful things that AI is doing for us today. If Amazon, same day shipping. I'm sure it's in one of the slides here. I saw it earlier, but we can't live without that now. That logistic power, the ability for them to know which product needs to be in which warehouse before someone even orders it, and just have that availability there. That's AI, right? And pretty much that's America. That's how we get everything for the most part now, right? We go on there and we expect to have it either today or tomorrow. So those things, we can't have those experiences without AI. We can't have pharmaceuticals continuously advance and get medicine cheaper and look at how we can maximize some of the chemistry coming out of with the medicines, so that way there's incompatibility, there's less incompatibility. Like all those fields moving forward, they rely so much on artificial intelligence today and in the future to progress them and to strengthen the accuracy of what they're doing. Make sense?
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a look at some another slide here. Okay, yeah, the human brain and the AI robot brain. All right, so you guys can read along with that. I'm just going to jump right into what this means to me because this is a pretty important subject, right? And discussing what AI is today and where it's going in the future. So when we think of the future, we think of little bots running around and doing work for us, and alleviating all the tedious tasks that we have in our day, right? So in order for a robot to even be able to do that, right, we have to be able to move the field forward with the way that these things can think. And where we are today, we're very, very primitive in any bot being able to do that. right? A bot can do very specialized things. Like we can design a bot to open a refrigerator and bring you something from inside of it. Or we can design a bot, with 1,000 different facial expressions to react to you when you're speaking to it. Those are still very, very, very specialized things. But when we talk about the future, when we're talking about a bot being able to actually understand what you're saying to it and respond and think through things, and then go through its parameters of what it can and can't do, like, for human, to protect humans and et cetera, that, all those things, all those concerns and philosophical concerns, right? We model that stuff off of the human brain. We study our neurons, we study the movements of them, the way that they fire and wire, how information is transmitted from the brain going down into our biological system. Those are the examples that have led to what we have today in every single country across the world, and in most of the technology we have today, including some of the very advanced natural processing language systems, for voice. They use all of these topologies that have come out of that particular field to build through what we have today. And moving that forward as cognitive neuroscience and as those different fields, different science in general, continues to bring about new discoveries about just even how our cranium works, that's going to move technology even faster, right? So it's moving fast now. But as things continually progress, because AI is helping it progress faster, AI is also helping itself progress even faster. Does that make sense? So because we have AI today, it's actually helping itself become stronger, even though it's not doing it on its own. So this is why, like, studying all these different fields, we have to study these fields internally in our lab. We go through so much documentation on a daily basis just to identify what are the opportunities that we have to allow, like, AI and robotics to be spread more across the world. Like, even with our products, how can we put it in front of people in Africa, and how can we put it in people in front of China, entrepreneurs that are running their business? How can we actually get it to work there? It's a robot. It requires massive amounts of hardware and massive amounts of computational, resources to work. So in order for us to be able to lighten the load and make that happen for them, so that way, like a farmer in Africa, for example, they have an opportunity to use a bot that will be able to help him run his business, kind of go upwards with his ideas and goals. For us to be able to do that, that's a lot of work, and we use the human brain to actually help us to be able to achieve some of that stuff today, and it's going to help us move a lot faster in the future as well. So that's
One of my favorite, classes probably in most of school and especially college was psychology. So when we were talking, I thought that was really cool that there's so much psychology that is studied to go into this. And it seems, I mean, this is probably a bad pun, like a no-brainer that you would, have to study psychology in order to develop AI. And so one question I thought of was, what's the most interesting thing that you've learned about the human brain that maybe even surprised you, but that helped you to develop artificial intelligence?
So just the way that we respond to each other as human beings, we have something called the hippocampus. The hippocampus encodes memories in our entire system for the most part, right? It allows us to fetch information that has happened, that has come in through our five senses. That's baffling to me, and we still don't know much about it. We have a significant understanding, but just even looking at that example, how we can build a robot that uses that exact same methodology in storing the information that's coming through the camera lenses known as the eyes, and the microphone known as, the voice, and et cetera, right? Or the ears, right? So all of these things, it's bringing in information. And for us to be able to say, all right, we can use this as an example to help a bot think faster. We can help a bot think more accurately using AI. That to me is one of the most wonderful things that keep me intact to what I do, and also keeps me hungry to continue to learn more, not just about the human brain, but how it also influences the robot, a robot or artificial intelligence in itself. Because one of the things that we do with our Maya, our bot, is we have to train her to speak. We have to train her to be able to respond to people. She's working with entrepreneurs. She needs to motivate them. She needs to identify when the best time of day is to have an engagement and interaction with them. So that way, the likelihood of them doing that job at the best potential is there, right? And also, the ums, the ahs, the laughter. To train a robot, or to train AI, to train a neural network to be able to even know when to laugh or to say is a heck of a task, because we have to train it to be able to look for conditions. We have to train it to look at, I know it sounds crazy, but that eye system, the camera, has to also be able to identify, the end user's eye. That the eye says a lot as well. Someone's eyes says a lot, just the same way their voice does. So body language, training a bot to pick up body language the same way we pick up body language. Because, like, for example, Evan, if you're walking by someone and, for whatever reason, they just have this nasty look on their face or whatever, your system will tell you something's not right. Your whole, whatever is happening computationally in your brain or within your biology system, you'll know that that person's either in a bad mood or something's going on. To train a bot or to train AI to be able to come up with that exact same prediction, just that one little thing, just that one example, will probably cost a few $1 trillion, right? So to be able to make these things, like, to bring these things to surface, to bring them to fruition, to make them happen, right? This is why, like, I'm heavily involved. Me and the team, we're heavily involved in trying to continuously be influenced by how that brain works, how our brain works.
When you talk to, when you work with the engineers or anybody who's trying to get an AI, is there anything that you recommend that they do to break into the field or to become more knowledgeable?
Yeah, pick a problem and, figure out, what you really think you can do to resolve it without using technology. So lay out the labor work, get the details mapped out, get a whiteboard, get a piece of paper, draw the whole thing out. What's the problem and how do you believe you can fix it with your approach and your angle, hence which is why you're getting involved in it. Then when you have a really good picture of what's going on and how you attack it, then you can look at how AI can assist, how it can be an instrument or a tool in this endeavor of yours. What can it automate, or what can it just pick up the whole load of? What can it help you think through? Can it help you come up with ideas or suggestions? Can it predict anomalies? Can it predict danger? All depending on what it is you're getting involved in. So it really goes back, once again, the vividness of one's vision. How vivid do you know that vision? Whether it's, whether you're for profit or nonprofit, okay? Either the same, it's the same right now. So once you have really definitive clarity of that, and you know what your task load is, really all the things that needs to get done today, tomorrow, in the next 20 years, then you can really rely on AI helping you. Because you don't want AI to come in and try to save the day for something that's not working, because AI won't understand what's not working. You want AI to come in and help the trajectory of good momentum. So either way, it's still in the responsibility of the entrepreneur or the business owner or the visionary to get momentum back on the right path, and then integrate AI appropriately and nurture it, optimize it, look for areas of opportunities and look for areas of failures constantly. And it's just like an employee for the most part. I hate to say it this way, but it really is. You really got to give it love. You really got to build a culture for it as well, because for the most part, it will probably be with your organization for as long as you have in your roadmap. You're connected? You there? Hello?
Oh, you know what, Sean? I should probably unmute because that's just the theme of the 2020s.
Yeah.
So I mean, one question I had was, sometimes like a company will think, okay, we're going to bring in AI and it's going to do all these great things. But have you seen in your experiences that sometimes bringing in AI does the opposite?
Absolutely, because, like, for example, sales. People try to integrate AI to help boost sales all the time. You can't integrate AI to try to help boost sales until you actually figure out what the problem is. And a lot of people still don't know what the problem is when they try to integrate AI. They try to integrate AI to help lead generation, or to try to get more leads, or to try to just condition the lead better. Right? That's not the problem. The problem is going back to why you're doing business with this customer of yours. Most people don't even have that figured out, or it's a really hazy question for them, right? And once you can definitively answer that, then you really know what you're trying to convey. Once you can remember what you're trying to convey, aside from the products and services that you carry, only then and there can AI help multiply those efforts, right? Kind of help scale that, or kind of help grow that based on, what your visions and goals are. So when you're implementing AI, it's right now in 2021, it is meant to assist you. You're not going to command it and tell it to go do something and expect it to come back with fantastic results, above and beyond what you can do. Actually, it's an infant still. You still need to train it that way. You need to treat it that way. It's going to do great things for you. It's going to pick up a lot of load, and it could be very, very profitable if integrated the right way. But you can't just a lot of people try to integrate AI very abrasively and in a very abrupt manner. And usually what that does is throws off operations. Not just because, a lot of things have to change internally. They usually don't think through it, and their customer experience changes not for the better. And AI doesn't solve those problems when you integrate it, right? AI is meant to do only what you tell it to do, or only what it's designed to do based on its engineering, you know, uh, reasons, right? So it's not going to go off in tangents and try to figure out how it's going to pick itself up if things are not going the right way. That's still up to the business owner, still up to the organization that's integrating it.
Excellent. I just want
Yeah.
to take a second here to just throw it out here to anybody who wants to ask a question or has a question, please. This is definitely an open discussion and open forum. So um, actually, yeah, so I have a question right now. And Phil, I can either unmute you, or if you want to just ask the question, I can go ahead and do that now. You can ask, or I can ask it in the window pane. It's up to you.
Yeah, for sure. Bring it on.
Okay, so Phil asks, does good implementation of AI require a way for AI to report the patterns humans have missed?
Yeah, absolutely. And that usually starts off with the data. What kind of data are you collecting, and how are you using that data to spit out outputs, right? I'm just going to try to make this really easy. The failure there in most cases is people haven't really thought through what data they want to collect. They're just collecting data, and they're trying to they're trying to mix it all up and come up with outputs, but they didn't define what the data is. Or they're buying data, they're buying large amounts of data sets, and they're integrating it, and they're expecting their AI to make sense of it when it's just still very generalized data, right? So when you're looking for your AI to help itself and also help you, right, you have to really define that. So first name, last name, address, some of those are just common things. But then what else are you getting? What else does the end user have in their life that's going to allow you to get data? For example, and I bring this up all the time, wearables, right? Smartwatches, iWatches, whatever the case may be, they collect information about an end user, based on heart rates and things of that nature. Why does that apply? Well, if you know someone's heart rate, you can probably predict their emotion. If you can predict their emotion, you probably know what type of ad to serve them. If you probably know what type of ad to serve them, you're probably going to have better conversions, which is probably going to increase sales. Artificial intelligence doesn't determine that. We still have to determine that as human beings. But if we determine those things and we define them, and then we send our robots off to do the hard work, they're going to all come back with everything that we've expected. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does. And I would throw it out to Phil. Does that kind of answer your question? Do you have any follow-ups? All right, he says definitely, thanks. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll just move right along if we don't have any more questions, so that way we can kind of get a lot of this stuff in, because I still want to go through AGI and what that is and specialized AI real quick. So artificial general intelligence, I'm sure some of you guys have heard this term, if not all of you. AGI is basically a point or when our own technology reaches a state in which it can outthink us or outperform us in almost every way on its own. Basically, it comes up with these things by itself, right? Outside the pre-programmatic instructions that we give it. And like we discussed earlier, a lot of the mainstream views on what AGI right now is still highly influential by movies and books like Terminator and the Jetsons. But and it's still very, very unsettled. I mean, people think AGI is still very science fiction, and it really is, because to think that that can happen today or in the very near future, actually knowing the potential of technology today, knowing what the neural networks are, knowing what they can actually come up with, it's a far-fetched statement, but it's not something that won't happen, right? It's almost inevitable. A lot of AI enthusiasts also agree with this, that there is some point of a singularity that will happen. But what we need to do is we need to just be cognitive and pay attention to what we're designing and what we're developing, so we can lower that probability. But it can be very helpful. I mean, when AGI comes about, it can actually help us with advancements and possibilities like becoming a multi-planetary species, right? Helping us go into space. Or AI can actually help us eliminate genetic deficiencies in the genome reprogramming. We do that all the time now. I mean, we made so much advancements in genome reprogramming and genetic understanding because of AI. AI helped us do that. It helped us computationally figure those things out, go into the chromosome, go into the cell. It helped us do all that math and come up with fantastic answers to help us give us a more fundamental understanding on who we are. And this is just some of the stuff, some of the great stuff AI has helped as well. But we still need to make a whole lot more progress there. We're not done, right? We're still at the tip of the iceberg there. So we need to improve AI, and it'll, once we do that, it will also help bring about, more answers for us to entertain. And it can go as far as even being our companionship. So AI, AGI is when we can look at AGI as the way we see robots in movies. It's self-thinking. It's coming up with its own ideas. It's thinking through what's best for humans. And for the most part, we're a really long way from that. But what we have today is specialized AGI, things that we develop to do things very specific. So for example, autonomous driving, that's specialized AGI. An autonomous driving car isn't going to walk up to your refrigerator and get something for you, right? Or it's not going to automatically learn how to play a video game, right? It's not going to teach itself that. It's going to know how to drive well all the time, right? And it's going to continuously improve its skills in that arena because that's what it's been programmed to do. And that's specialized AI. Make sense?
Yeah, and one thing that I think of and that I've been thinking over the last couple of weeks with this coming up is, and I guess it was kind of timely that this happened, but with Elon Musk coming out with the Tesla bot, I know there was a lot of, I didn't get to read everything about it, but there was definitely some interesting things I think that came about that. And do you think that, what he's trying to do or what they're trying to do would be at some point AGI?
Our visions are very lateral and parallel with what you just mentioned, because he's brought a bot into the consumer world in the home, and we're doing the same thing for business, right? But in terms of the way those two things think, right? We both have a lot of work to do to get Maya where she needs to be and to get the Tesla bot where it needs to be, to just have a more of a probability and understanding. And I use that word very loosely, understanding, because the way you and I understand something as human beings, when another human being says something, to train a bot to do that, even today, is still very primitive, right? And we're still a long way from being able to do that. But again, we're also in a very great place. I mean, what we have is very, very impressive. The Tesla bot does a very good thing for us, even in the field, even in my field, and for me. Like I'm highly excited for that, and I want to continuously see it progress because it opens up the human experience to robots even more, right? There are robot relationships all over the world. People are married to robots in some places, right? And you've heard, I'm sure we've all heard crazy stories here and there about what's happening with robots and things of that nature. But nevertheless, right? These are some of the things that are there. And the way that when Tesla Bot came out, I just viewed it as a point in which that it will help people have a more trust for that type of exoskeletal view in front of them. So as me and my team also continuously work on our products, when we get to a certain point of sophistication and scale, as a species, we're more ready to embrace that. Does that make sense? Hello? Maybe you're muted again.
I gotta stop doing that.
Okay.
Yep. I guess one question I would have is one could like how do companies or businesses start experimenting with AI? Like if they haven't already done it before.
Put it in a place in which you're doing well, and just make sure, because you could take a risk there. So let's just say sales is going well, then let's look at artificial intelligence. What about AI? What can we automate, or where can it help a little bit, that even if it doesn't do such a good job, it's not going to hurt your operations? And I'm just talking about current business operations that's currently going and looking just to kind of transition into more of a technological environment, or even just be more innovative as a whole, right? Because that's what AI is. It helps with innovation. So when you integrate it in those areas, that will provide you data. What kind of data is that going to provide you? First and foremost, your team is ready to handle something a little bit more expanded, using AI. And number two, if it hasn't, depleted any performance or sales hasn't been lost, then we know your customers are also, receptive of it, right? So when those things can be proven, then there's a true justification as far as why and where AI should be placed. Then and only then can you think through really good strategies of implementing it more at a scale. Then you can think about how you get your humans involved. That's usually where the problem lies. People integrate AI and they don't get their humans to kind of work along with it. So the humans are doing one thing and AI is doing another thing, and the corporation is not really running itself, right? And really what you want to do is just want to get them to work together, because AI will do massive, massive amounts of things and situations for you, like get your leads or like answer emails, if that be what you use it for. And not only that, just come up with ideas or look for just, ways of increasing your customer experience or making them happier, or just even just to determine if they're happy at all, right? Instead of a human trying to figure out whether that's true or not, because we're going through analytics and we're making is a guessing game, and you got to talk to marketing, and you got to talk to legal, you got to talk to technology, you got to talk to a whole bunch of different departments before you even know if your customer's happy, right? Truthfully, just because there's profit there doesn't mean your customer's happy. You just probably have something they really need, like a COVID shot or something, honestly. So that doesn't necessarily mean they're happy. But if you want to determine whether they're happy, now this is where AI can help with pattern recognition, behavioral trends, do something to try to figure out, here are some scenarios in which the customers might not be so happy, so let's pull that off the shelf. And here are some scenarios where we can increase happiness because it'll increase repeat business, residual business. Those type of scenarios would be ideal. And that's kind of a plug and play, so that's one that can be integrated in almost any type of business because it's just a methodology at that point.
What kind of ways have you seen where bots or AI is helping companies to tie all these things together to make customers happier or to make them more pleased with their products?
Amazon. I mean, Amazon is a simple example. Even the suggestions that it puts in front of you after you found whatever it is you're looking for. See, here's what happens, right? And this is very common with Amazon, and an example. And I'm using Amazon because everyone knows them and they use they use large amounts of AI. After you find the thing that you're typically there for, they'll put a whole bunch of stuff in front of you through suggestions or also bot, whatever. That takes the session that you were originally there to have and typically does tenfold with it. So instead of 10 seconds, you're now there for 100 seconds. And that's a very common thing. But to you, what you're doing is you're having an experience. You're in the app or you're online, wherever you are shopping, you're having an experience, right? And because Amazon's AI is performing accurately, right? It's putting things in front of you that is probably making you more comfortable with the situation. So guess what? Now your emotions are involved. When your emotions are involved, even though the time is just extended by times 10, you don't really care about that. You don't really know that. You're in an experience. Amazon's, biggest benefit there is they created an experience for you. So they created a memory. And because they created that memory for you, now they can go back and recall that memory known as, hey, you forgot this in your cart. And because you forgot this in your cart, there's a transaction. Follow me? That's AI. That's how AI does that. That's exactly how that works.
That's and it's going back to the whole like how do you know AI when you see it? It's interesting or it's fascinating that Amazon is AI and you might not even know it when you see it.
Reaction. It's action reaction, Evan. I mean, the thing is they want to hold on to your five senses. They want to hold on to your eyeballs. They want to hold on to your ears, right? And it doesn't matter what they're selling. It could be Amazon, it could be Apple. Once they're writing a memory in your brain, then they can recall it through remarketing. And the reason why they can do that with high conversion rates is because AI is helping them write the kind of memory through accuracy. What kind of AI? Okay, let's do this type of ad, or let's do this, let's use these colors, right? Things of that nature. It's helping them narrow down what should be done and should not be done. So whatever outputs is being done by their team, their humans, their marketers, their graphic designers, it's actually being done with more accuracy. So it hits the nail on the head the first time. And statistics prove that. This is why big powerhouses, big powerful organizations stay powerful now because they use AI. Even in the election, I won't go into the election because that's politics and stuff like that. But yeah, no, we're gonna stay so far from that. But even across all those arenas, they're using AI, and they're using AI for the reasons they need, they want, and they're getting what they want. But that's also because they spend a lot of time identifying how it can actually really work for them versus trying to do the same thing everyone else is doing.
So, dropping down to like a local level, local or regional, what are some companies, in this area locally or regionally that are, doing AI really well, or maybe in a unique kind of way. And then I guess, the second part of this question would be like, how does, describe how like Maya kind of fits into that.
Yeah, so from a local level, I know there are many businesses. I don't want to pull any out of a hat, so I leave any out, but they are incorporating AI into their organization. And when I say they're incorporating it, I'm talking about organizations that specialize in science, organizations that specialize in medicine, organizations that specialize in finance at a very root level. And they're incorporating it to kind of help lift the accuracy of what they're doing. So, for example, I have a few friends of mine in pharmaceuticals. They're using AI to help them determine what chemicals they need to put in their compounds as they make their medicines, right? Artificial intelligence is helping them come up with those mixtures, if you will, and those scenarios a lot faster than they would typically do that going one by one with their current format. And they're integrating this at a wide scale. And on top of that, being in Tampa, it's right now we have so much spotlight for businesses. So many entrepreneurs are doing a fantastic job here. Many hedge funds are here. Obviously, the sports teams are doing a fantastic job. So all these things are bringing many eyeballs to this little area that we're in. So if you're in these types of arenas and you're in these types of market spaces, getting artificial intelligence involved in what you're doing, as a lot of people are, is only going to help boost their efforts. What type of efforts? Reaching people across the world. A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of visionaries today, they want to do bigger things, bro. They want to do bigger things. They want to help people. They have more of a definitive meaning in why they want to commit to the things that they're committing to. So because of that, right, they really got a handle on what they're doing on a day to day. So then AI really helps them and allows them to spread their work more across the world to areas such as Australia, China, India, et cetera, et cetera. That's how I see other organizations incorporating AI. They're not really doing it so much for profit, right? A lot of the people I speak to, they're not doing it to gain more sales. They're doing it to get a stabler business. They're doing it to get, happier people inside their walls, employees, finding ways to kind of lift all of that, just using technology outside, just focusing on profiteering. So I do see a lot of that being adapted in the arena of Tampa, and not just Tampa, honestly, just around the globe. A lot of people that I speak to, they are adapting AI in that way, which to me is the right way because there are ethics and you're actually integrating it considering ethics, which is basically how you treat people, et cetera, et cetera. Follow me?
Yeah. So speaking, I guess more like, nationally, you had mentioned that you were at CES not too long ago. So I thought that was pretty cool, the CES
Yeah,
show.
yeah, that was amazing, man. We had an opportunity to kind of show the whole world what we're working on. So Maya is a very special girl, right? And it's really awesome to be able to even call her girl, her, she, and so many people being able to recognize her as that. It's almost like it's personification, right? So we're working on her to help her find out ways to lift entrepreneurs. People have these fantastic ideas, they have these great ideas, and they just don't know how to get it on paper, or they don't know how to get it out in the real world. So we're training her to come up and search for patterns and come up with ideas and do the actual work. That is AI. That at the core, her brain, the complexity, the neural networks, the things that we use inside of there, just to have a conversation with someone running a business, that doesn't exist anywhere in the world. IBM specializes in what they specialize in, Apple specializes in what they specialize in, and so on and so forth. Now, what we've been able to do with Maya, and I'm using our Maya as a case scenario to just discuss the application of AI here for a second. We're using all these powerhouses of technology together. We're getting them to work together in a nice, harmonious way, and they're allowing this Maya that we've developed to actually come up with ideas and think. Now we have a lot of work to do to be able to scale that and increase the scope of what she understands. But by doing what we're doing with the pace that we're doing it at, in a few years, we're really going to have something for businesses to lean on to kind of help their trajectory of constant growth, because that's what we're looking for, constant growth. All across the world, people are, businesses run the world for the most part. Everything around us was developed by a business, right? Or some sort of visionary or entrepreneur. So in order for us to unfold the future of things that we make and things that we will have in our lives to experience, that's what we're considering when we're building out Maya's brain, helping her help people think through new things. So that in itself is a challenge, because now you have to train something to try to do something very generalized, very specialized. So now we have two problems we got to get to work together. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And so, how what are some of the ways that you'll measure success with as you develop Maya?
So we have partnered with some of the biggest organizations in the world, a lot of which you guys know, Bank of America, Chase, Squarespace, many sports teams like Formula One, the NBA, the NFL. We've all partnered together, and they're giving us various technological inputs and outputs where we've developed this massive ecosystem for Maya known as her brain. So her brain, just like our brain, is pumping massive amounts of information in and out, assessing and archiving and computing and predicting all at the same time, really, really, really fast, right? So we have error checking. We've developed her what's called objection functions and her reward functions. We've developed those to allow her to be able to identify ways to actually make progress in the end user's goal, right? Not just looking at a way that, oh my God, this person uses Maya 50,000 times a day, or this person spent this much amount with her, and things of that nature. Those to us, those are still going to be just hardcore metrics. But really, just moving her to be able to bring those experiences to the end user, that's hard, man. That's a very difficult thing to do because data scientists have to actually simulate every scenario that she will possibly come into, at least today, to kind of train her to then let her go off on her own and then think through how to simulate things on her own. So we have to first simulate them, then train her how to simulate, then she can simulate, which then allows her to come up with outputs and ideas on how this thing that you want to make can become real. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Um, we have about a few minutes left here. I usually try to stop right at 7. Again would like to open it up to the audience to see if there's any questions out there. Please go ahead and put them in the question pane. But this has been very enlightening, and I knew that this was going to be a fascinating topic to explore. So I appreciate your time. Um, so if somebody wants to go and find Maya, is it meetmaya.world?
Yeah. You can head over to meetmaya.world or even startmaya.com. Both goes to the application and hop on the waiting list. If you'd like, anyone that's attending today, just leave your name in the chat, or if you can even send an email over to Evan. We have a waiting list for Maya because it's just kind of one of those situations. It's overwhelming right now. A lot of people are getting access to her, and so that's about 45 days on a waiting list. But for attending today, I'll talk to the engineers and I'll get you guys access a little bit quicker. Maybe about a week or so. And Maya is beta, so you can kind of experience her in every way that I've explained throughout the course of this now.
Very cool. Two last questions I have to ask, and then I'll give some time back to everybody. Unless there are some questions out there, again, please just put them in the question pane. If not, we have this recorded. I will put it out there. It will be on YouTube. We'll try to put it out on Geographic Solutions corporate channels. One, your favorite book, and two, your favorite music album.
Ooh, man. So I'm not really a reader, um, to be completely honest with you. And you're gonna think I'm very weird for saying this, but I actually read the dictionary, right? This
Okay.
is just really true. And the only reason I read the dictionary is because I find as I'm training these robots, just refreshing myself on grammar at that level is really beneficial to, how I'm inputting the accuracy into some of the machines that we have. So it's true, and I know it's a weird thing, but that's actually probably my favorite book is the dictionary.
Very
Uh,
cool.
and for an album, I listen to a lot of flute music. I don't really, there's not really an album per se that of my favorite flute composition, but I listen to a lot of, it just does because I'm one. I do a lot of yoga, right? So I have this inner engineering thing that I work on. So it really just helps the creativity within myself. So I mean, I can't really give accreditation to an album as well. That's a genre that I like to revert to when I'm having my creative block or just trying to get a little bit more out of myself.
I'm picturing after Maya, possibly a yoga bot, maybe, or a flute bot, something like that.
Listen, if doing what we envision to do with Maya will allow her to be able to do some of those things on her own. Now, this is very 50 years, 100 years from now, but what we're building as a team should surpassed that timeline, right? So even if I'm no longer here walking the earth, whoever delegates what I do now, right? They'll continue to move that and develop and try to engineer her to get there as soon as possible, because it's not something possible today. As great as AI is across the world, we have dancing bots, Sophia and all the other fantastic things that are out there for media driven purposes, right? There's still a lot of work to get them to actually become what we're afraid of. And I know that's a crazy way to say that, but when we get them to become what we're afraid of, then they can also become our best tool and instrument in life to help save us, or even, when I say save us, you know what I mean, help us spend more time with ourselves and things, just have a better human experience.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Sean, thank you. This was excellent, and I know that everybody who's here tonight is probably thinking the same. If there aren't any questions, I'm going to go ahead and call it a night, and we will get these materials out. Try to tell everybody where you can find them. Please, you can find Sean at meetmaya.world or startmaya.com, or send me an email. My name is Evan Brenner. I'm the digital content coordinator at Geographic Solutions. It's been a pleasure tonight, and I thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right, have a great night.
All right, bye.